Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we'll be previewing the Georgia Tech football season that's upcoming. Last year I predicted them to go 8-4 with a conference record of 6-2, and they actually went 7-6 with a conference record of 5-3, capping off the season with that bowl win against UCF, which was actually the first Georgia Tech bowl win since Paul Johnson left the program. The season last year was kind of a roller coaster ride with big wins against Miami and UNC, but some really winnable losses with Louisville and Bowling Green. Those were games that I would have thought the Jackets could pull out. And really, the Louisville game came down to a last second fumble, and the Bowling Green game resulted in the entire defensive staff getting shuffled around for the rest of the season and led to a lot of off-season changes with a new defensive coordinator coming in this year for the Yellow Jackets. Key departures, edge Kyle Kennard is gone, linebacker Paul Moala, offensive lineman Jakaya Leftwich and Tyler Gibson are gone, and Dominique Laylock, the wide receiver, is gone. There were more, obviously, and with each team there are more than who I list, but these are the ones that just pop out to me. Obviously, the wide receivers that Georgia Tech still has are going to be fine for Haynes King and the offense to work with as weapons. So I'm not super concerned there. But obviously, defensive consistency was a big thing for Georgia Tech last year, and Kyle Kennard was a big contributor for the defensive line. So finding replacements for him in production is going to be a big thing this year. And you have defensive lineman Jordan Vandenberg coming in, and he looks really promising with his size and his athletic ability. Also arriving that I think is going to be big contributors early on. The tight end Luke Harpring, cornerback Troy Stevenson, wide receiver Isaiah Cannon, edge Romello Height, and linebacker EJ Lightsey. Obviously, I said before, new defensive staff members. The consistency on the defensive side of the ball is going to be a big emphasis by head coach Brent Key. A new receivers coach, too. You have a really good offense that's looking for complementary football with the defense. And going into strengths, I think your quarterback, Haynes King, he showed that he is a dynamic player in the conference. Eric Singleton, your wide receiver number one, big weapon for you, as well as your running back, Jamal Haynes. He can both run and catch very, very well. And the offensive line, a big emphasis by Brent Key because he was an offensive line coach and offensive lineman. So he wants that unit whipped into shape from day one. And weaknesses, defensive consistency, obviously. That is the most important thing for Georgia Tech this year if they want to try and compete for the ACC championship and on the national stage. But let's get into the schedule. All right, you start off with Florida State in Ireland, number 15, Florida State. Brent Key is 4-0 against ACC opponents that are ranked in his head coaching career with Miami, Pitt, and UNC twice. But Florida State is a more complete program at this point than those programs were and aren't. So I have you down for a loss against the Seminoles in Ireland. I do believe that it'll be a very close game with Haynes King and DJ Uiagalelei having a bit of a quarterback battle of offensive production. But in the end, Florida State does enough to get the win and move on. So after that, you have what I would believe is a comfortable game against Georgia State, but seeing as how Georgia Tech flubbed against Bowling Green last year, I think this will be a big emphasis to take care of the easier opponent I'll have you down for the win, but definitely watch out for this game. Next, you have Syracuse. Syracuse is a very interesting case this year with Kyle McCord coming and the new head coach that they have. Um, I think that it'll be a bit of a struggle for them in their first season, as it usually is. Obviously, some exceptions like Jeff Brom last year at Louisville, but Jeff Brom is a little more proven with his time at Purdue, winning divisions and getting to the Big Ten championship game. Obviously, did the same for Louisville, not necessarily winning a division because it was all one conference, but getting to the championship game, which was a big thing for Louisville last year. But Syracuse is not in the same situation. I think they will have success, but I'll have you down for a win just because of where you are established with your offense and focusing way more on your defense with the staff adjustments. I think you will get the win. Next, you have VMI, which if VMI is not a win, then you've got some serious problems. So a win against VMI. Then you go at Louisville. The game last year against Louisville was really good in terms of entertainment. You got out to a lead, and then you lost it. Almost came back at the end with that late drive, but Haynes King fumbled, and that was it. So I think, again, it'll be a good game. Obviously, you're on the road, and Brent Key usually thrives in situations like this where it's a ranked team. But Brom is a very experienced coach. This is now his second year after an appearance in the ACC championship game. I think you take the loss. Then you have your bye week, a game against Duke. Duke, first-year head coach Manny Diaz is there. Obviously, he had head coaching experience at Miami. They have some interesting transfers, but they also had quite a few players transfer out due to Elko leaving for Texas A&M. You're at home, so I think this is a win with your established offense and more battle-tested defense at this point, and the fact that they have a first-year head coach. Then you go at UNC. Georgia Tech has done very well this century against UNC in football. UNC has taken some steps back with the loss of Drake May and a few of their offensive weapons. Obviously, Nesbitt, the tight end there, is still one of the best, if not the best tight end in the conference and the country. But I think you get the win there just because of the success that you've had in the past continuing against the Tar Heels. Then you play Notre Dame, the number 5 team in the country. I think this is a loss, obviously. Notre Dame, a very, very good college football program that does very well against ACC teams. They kind of slipped up last year. Obviously, I had them losing to Clemson, which did happen, but Louisville also beat them. Almost lost to Duke. Some very narrow escapes that they had last year. I could definitely see that being the case this game against the Yellow Jackets, and I think Georgia Tech will definitely be in the lead at some points in this game, but overall Notre Dame will have the luck and the skill to escape at the end. Then you go at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is one of the front runners to win the conference as sort of a dark horse pick with Kyron Jones and all the returning starters. I believe they have around 17 or 18 starters returning for the Hokies this year. Obviously a very experienced team now with the time that they have, the playing experience that they have under their belt. And you're going into Lane Stadium. Possibly a night game if Virginia Tech is doing well enough, and I think this is a loss for the Yellow Jackets. An incredibly hard environment in the Tecmo Bowl, as the rivalry is nicknamed. But obviously, again, I think a lot of Georgia Tech's games will be close, and it will be a situation where they will have the opportunity to win, and the other team, obviously, if they have the ball last, will be on some sort of drive to win the game. Maybe in some cases, like the Florida State game, the Notre Dame game, and the Georgia game, most likely they'll have a 10 or a two possession lead near the end. But I think this Georgia Tech team is very capable of competing with pretty much everybody on their schedule. You look at last year, even with Georgia in Atlanta, which even though it's listed as a home game, if you know anything about that rivalry game, Georgia fans really pack out Bobby Dodd. So it's a semi home game, and actually Georgia Tech this century has more success in Athens than in Atlanta. Um, but anyway, to get back to the schedule, um, I think a lot of these games are going to end up being close for the Yellow Jackets, and if everything goes right, I think they could be in a position to play in the championship game. But also on the flip side of that, if you drop a few games, it could be that you don't make a bowl game this year. I don't think that's the case. I I think you'll be somewhere in the middle where you win some of those really really close games that you could have lost just like last year, and then some of the games where you're ahead, you might fall behind in the third and fourth quarter like you did against Louisville. In the cases of Florida State, uh, Notre Dame, maybe even Louisville themselves. But anyway, you have your bye week after Georgia Tech, and then you play Miami at home. This and the NC State game that comes after it scream trap games for both Miami and NC State. And because of that, I think you get two wins. I think you beat Miami, and I think you beat NC State. Both programs are very, very talented. Miami probably a little bit more than NC State, but NC State has a long, long established coaching staff with Tony Gibson and Dave Doran there, and obviously Robert Anae, who's only been there for 2 seasons but is a very dynamic play caller and very good with his offensive strategy. Miami, they have Cam Ward coming in, who seems to be sparking a lot of interest in the Miami offense. Obviously, they're circling this game in a way because it really should have been a loss for Georgia Tech and a win for Miami, and they want some redemption for that. But Miami, if you know the history of Miami in the ACC, they they always seem to drop one of these random games, and a team like Georgia Tech with its seemingly Jekyll and Hyde personality of doing really well in these high pressure situations and then not really showing up in others, it just screams to me trap game for Miami and NC State. And since they're both ranked, this is exactly the moment that the team and the staff seem to step up, and I think that they get both of the wins. And then you finish the year like you do every year against Georgia in Athens. Last year's game was, I believe, an 8-point game, but in Atlanta, which was really impressive. A lot of Georgia fans and myself did not see that coming, and I think it will be close again. Uh, I don't think this is the year that you beat Georgia. I could definitely see a possibility where you get a few more additions in the off season next year, and you're back in Atlanta and you possibly beat them. But I don't think this is the year. So I have you down for a loss, which means my prediction is that the Yellow Jackets will go 7-5 with a 5-3 conference record. And I want to thank you guys for being here for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.